literally from the age of 17 to 29, my dreams were dead. It was just me being 29 years old, hitting rock bottom and saying, girl, what you gonna do? They can't imagine a single mom from Newark who had a baby at 17, dropped out of school, all this bullshit, is out here thriving, selling coffee. Hey, what's going on? This is Fly, the CEO of Boss Blend Coffee Company, and you're tuned into the Dreams and Drive podcast.
This week's episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by Charmin. Charmin has long-lasting mega rolls that aim to give you a better bathroom experience. Those who use Charmin really enjoy the go. Hey, Dream Drivers. Welcome to episode 260 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And I am really excited for you guys to hear today's episode. Have any of you ever felt like people have counted you out, that you wouldn't be a success and pull through your personal challenges? But when you did, you showed out. So this week's guest is Kalisha Carmichael, who's socially known as Fly. She's a Newark native, and she's the CEO of Boss Blend Coffee Company. On this episode, Kalisha is going to share her life story and how she went from a space where her dreams were dead for 12 years to now actively building a thriving coffee business. The years in between were rough, but laid the foundation for where she is today. And for Fly, dream driving meant diving deep and unlocking her inner tenacity and resilience. And she's going to keep it real about what we really have to do if we want to stop dreaming about it and start living the life of our dreams. Some of the things we're going to discuss in this episode include the best mistakes she's ever made in business, how she launched Boss Blend and sold $1,000 worth of product her first day, how COVID-19 really rocked her world and catapulted her into full-time entrepreneurship, tips for dream drivers struggling to believe in their dreams. And, I had to bring this one up because it's something I'm living through now, how motherhood informs her grind. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, I'm going to ask that you please make sure that you're sharing it with your community. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you're tagging us and using that hashtag Dreams and Drive. And guess what, guys? We are doing a giveaway. So if you want to enter to win some Boss Blend coffee, if you are somebody who loves coffee, you are a coffee connoisseur, go to dreamsanddrive.com/win. That's www.dreamsanddrive.com/win to enter this week's giveaway with Boss Blend coffee. I want to gift one of you dream drivers some Boss Blend coffee from Kalisha. So make sure you guys enter. Lastly, guys, make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're listening. All right, let's hear from Kalisha.
Hi, what's going on, Raina? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I truly appreciate it.
Girl, it's been a long time coming. I feel like, when did we meet? We met at that time when we were doing that project for Sarah Vega, right?
And I was just talking to Sarah, and we met at Evan the Show's studio. So shout out to Evan the Show. And we were doing a project for Sarah, and that's where we connected. It was like 2019, definitely before COVID. And we was out here getting the creative.
When we could be maskless, right?
Yep.
And listeners, I just want to give you guys a quick heads up. One of the things of dream driving is you have to make it happen how it happens. So if you guys hear little baby Axel screaming when I'm talking, I'm sorry about that, but I'm trying to just figure out ways to still be a mompreneur and get things done. So thank you, Fly, for being so gracious with me and for understanding.
Of course. I think the most important thing about entrepreneurship, especially moms who are entrepreneurs, we don't get enough credit. Like, okay, you're a mompreneur, that's great. But what goes into it, crying babies, diapers, just really trying to figure out how to create space and do what we have to do to still live our dreams while being moms, it's a real thing. So absolutely. Listen, let little Axel be on the mic, okay?
He's trying to grab it right now, actually. So let's get started, Fly. I love to go back in time, right? I really think that we cannot do ourselves justice when we're reflecting on our journey if we don't start at the beginning, right? What inspired you as a child? If you can go back to 7, 8-year-old Fly, how did you see the world back then?
Wow. 7 or 8-year-old Fly. You know what? That's very interesting that you picked 7 or 8, because I remember when I was 7 years old, that was the first time I went to New York. And I remember I think that's when my dreams were activated. I was with my dad and we went into Times Square, and I remember going to Times Square and seeing all the lights and seeing Broadway theater and seeing like just, I don't know, for some reason, it was just this big moment for me. And then I remember my father saying, he was like, in New York is where you can make your dreams happen. And I'm like, damn. So I remember being 7 and 8, automatically after that moment saying, I want to be an actress. So when I was 7 or 8, I always wanted to be a star, I guess. And this is the first time me really saying a star, but I always wanted to be on camera. So I always loved theater. I always loved acting, dancing. Like I was just such a creative 7 or 8 for sure.
We would have probably been friends, right? It's funny because all the people that I've interviewed on the show, it's kind of like, we were all kind of kindred spirits. I definitely can relate to you with the whole of wanting to be, like, did you feel like you knew you were special in some way? Did that sound, is that a weird question? But do you get where I'm going with that? Like you kind of had this feeling that there was something unique about you, even as a kid.
As a kid, I always knew there was something different about me. And it's so interesting because, I come from, like, my family is very artistic, so like from my mom's side, my mom sings and my dad sings. And then also I just have family, I'm half Cuban, half Black. So, being Afro-Latina and growing up in a very much Hispanic household, music is a huge part of my upbringing. So I always knew I was special, but I just didn't know in what way, because the truth is, my family was just like, go to school. My mom being a Cuban immigrant, it was like, go to school, get an education. And I was just always such a artsy kid. So I just like, school is not for me. Like, I need to be on TV. I need to be, so I always knew I was special for sure. That's such a great question.
I ask that because I feel like sometimes we have these feelings as kids that we don't really know what to do with them. Does that make sense? Like for me as a kid, I used to, so this might sound a little crazy, but I used to be obsessed with being a teacher. I would like make fake lesson plans, make fake lunch cards. Like I would make, girl, you would have thought I had 10 different classrooms. I made the whole lesson plans for like social studies and all that stuff. Right. But right. I didn't know what to do with that, but I knew that there was something within me. But as I got older, that's kind of when I realized, oh, right, Raina, you could do something with this, right? For you, how did that pan out for you as you grew into an adolescent teenager? What was the dream for you? What was the thing that you thought, my life is going to be like this when I grow up?
Wow. As I started growing up as an adolescent, I was born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. So first of all, I went to, schools that were catered around theater. So elementary school, middle school, I did a lot of theater. So I was exposed to the arts in a real way. And then also I had something called in Spanish, montal quinceañeras, which means I was the one that people would come to in my neighborhood to show dance choreography for Sweet 15s. So in the Hispanic culture, when you have a Sweet 15, usually the Sweet 15 girl and her girls, they do dance routines in the middle of the Sweet 15. And I was always, me and a couple of my friends, we were always the one that people would come to for us to show like choreography, like salsa and all these different things. So growing up, 10, 11, 12, 13, I was in salsa groups. I was just doing so much. And it was just me trying to figure out like what I was naturally good at. And I always knew that I wanted to teach for sure. So that kind of falls into that, right? I always wanted to be a teacher. So I would play school, but it was like teaching other girls how to dance salsa, or it was teaching people how to, do choreography, or teaching others how to act. So I always knew I wanted to be in a position to teach, but I didn't know in what way. But yeah, that was definitely me growing up.
What about after high school? How did life pan out?
Listen.
So, 'cause it's funny. I asked that because now that I think about it, I think there's a meme like, what did you think you'd be at 25, right? Versus what actually happened. It's so crazy how it's like an 18-year-old. I thought I would have my whole life together by 25. I'm 29 now and I'm like, listen. So like, what was life after high school like for you?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I dropped out of high school my junior year. I became a mom at 17 years old. And then after that, my dreams went down the toilet because, I became a mom so young and I started to honestly just get involved in shit that I didn't have no business getting involved in. Like, having a boyfriend, having sex, and then getting pregnant so young. So after that, then I went back to get my GED when I was like 21. So I was just out here working dead-end jobs, doing all types of things. And, after having my first kid at 17, I was just like, yo, what happened to all the, I didn't expect my life to pan out the way it did. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't expect to be a mom at 17. I didn't expect to be working all these dead-end jobs. Literally from the age of 17 to 29, my dreams were dead.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't start really getting into my creative bag until I was 29 years old. So when you think about like, yo, what happened from 17 to 29? Mad shit, life, and it was just me being 29 years old, hitting rock bottom and saying, I have 3 kids now. So girl, what you gonna do?
Girl, I don't know how people have more than one, right? 3? Let me go back to that. You said your dreams were dead. While you were in it though, like looking back, did you know your dreams were dead? Does that make sense to you?
Oh, Raina, these are so good. I did not know. I did not know that my dreams were dead because I was so caught up in taking care of my children. So also, I'm going to be honest with you. Once I had a child at 17, I was working. And then I had my next kid at 25, like 8 years later, I had my daughter. And I remember me, while being pregnant with my daughter saying like, damn, what am I going to do to really secure? Because there's something about having one kid to having 2 kids that you start kind of thinking like, damn, what am I going to do? Like, what's really happening with my life right now? And I remember thinking that I wanted to, I do remember at 25, after my daughter was born, I do remember thinking like, I want to do, that's when I started podcasting. So this was 2014. And that's when I was like, I want to do something creative. But I was like, what can I do? And I'm like, you know what? Let me start podcasting. And I would never forget my father, who is an entrepreneur, but he's an old school entrepreneur. He told me like, I don't think that you should waste your time doing creative stuff because you decided to be a mother. So
damn.
I'm like, damn.
It hurts when it comes from your parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was like, you know what? You decided to be a mom. So you need to work. You need to go back to college and it's not about you no more, period. It's not about you. It's about these kids. And I'm like, damn, it's not about me. I'm only 25. What you mean? So that's when I knew that for all those years, because you have those type of messages being sent to you, either subliminally, subconsciously, family members, grandparents, whoever saying, hey, you decide to have children, your life is done, sis. It's now about those kids. Your dreams die. And you just start working. And then you kind of wake up and be like, really? I'm 25. Yeah, I have 2 kids now at this point. What's up? So it was very interesting.
Although that time in life might have been a little hard for you, what do you think was a lesson though that came out of it?
For sure, being a mom at 17 and now being 33 and having 3 children and having my own business and growing my business to where it is today, I've learned that I have tremendous tenacity because the truth is, don't have much. I don't have much education, to be honest. I went to college for like 30 days. I went to college for 30 days. I worked retail for over 15 years. I grew in different retail companies. But now being an entrepreneur with a business that, we're talking about being in retail stores and growing my business to what it is today, man, the tenacity has been crazy. I've dealt with some wild shit. I've been crossed by people. I'm a single mom, so that tells you a lot about, the partner that I chose to have. You just learn so much about who you are while creating the life that you want, and you also learn so much about any trauma or the way you were raised, and being Afro-Latina. So being raised with my mom immigrant from Cuba, and then my father being from Brooklyn, it was a lot of traumas, it was a lot of shit that was passed down to me. It was a lot of shit that was passed down to me, and you just got to do a lot of unlearning. So I've been on a self-development journey since 2017 because I hit rock bottom. I was like, listen, I've been through a lot. I have all these kids. What you gonna do? Because the truth is, my kids, I have them. I have to raise them, and I have to create a life for my children that they don't have to start from scratch like I did. So it's been a journey for sure.
I love that you mentioned that because, I'm a child of immigrant parents as well. My parents are from Jamaica. And I feel like our parents, they want the best for us, but they're also parenting us through their own traumas as well, right? And it takes some kind of courage to break out. I think as immigrant children, especially, to break out from being all right with upsetting or disappointing the parental units. Although we're grown right now, we're grown adults, but there is still kind of that sense of breaking free from the idea that we have to do what they told us to do. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And, and the thing is, we talk about immigrant parents. My mom is from Cuba. My mom came from Cuba on a boat, and she, her stories are very much real. But my grandmother, while in Cuba, was an entrepreneur. So I'm very much like my grandmother. My mother tells me all the time, like, you're so much like my mom. My grandmother, was one of the illest in Cuba, and, being under Castro and all those things that you have to go through as being an immigrant. So my mom came to the States, it was to live a better life. So having a child who is a born citizen, it's like, you have to go to school. You have to do this and this and this. So when I decided to become an entrepreneur, my mom wasn't surprised because she always knew I had the entrepreneurial spirit. So when I decided to leave my job, I was making a very great salary. I left my job in the middle of a pandemic because Boss Blend Coffee was scaling so quickly. I'm like, I have to leave my job, a nice salary, and to really, girl, get my dreams and drive. Hello. So it was a big moment, but she told me, she was like, listen, this is why I came to the States. This is why my mother sent me here from Cuba, because, my grandmother probably saw, like, listen, if I send my daughter, mind you, my grandmother sent her children to the States and she stayed in Cuba. So my mother was on a boat as a little girl with her sister they were probably 15, 12 and 6.
Could you imagine?
On a boat from Cuba to Miami. I mean, in the middle of the sea. All because my grandmother saw a vision and said, you know what? If my children stay here in Cuba, what's going to happen to my great-grandchildren? You know what I'm saying? And that's the type of vision that you have to have when you're creating not only a life for yourself, but for your family. So this is why I created Boss Blend Coffee. And this is not for me, it's for my children, and it's for my grandchildren, for my great-grand. So I got a lot of work to do, Raina.
Let's talk about that hitting rock bottom, though, right? You said from the ages of 17 to 29 that your dreams were dead. What did it feel like? Talk me through the feeling. You're 29 and you realize, like, something got to change.
Check this out. So I was 29 years old, and this is real. And I've talked about this on my podcast, and I've talked about this with my bosses. But I was 29 years old. I was living in East Orange. I was in a studio apartment And it was literally me, my mom, and my 3 children. And I was working, but I was in a studio apartment because I was always bad with money. I didn't have a good relationship with money. My money mindset wasn't what it is today. So I always had a job, but it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much of it you keep. So I wasn't really good with my money. So I was always getting evicted from apartments. I mean, I was a mess. Okay. I was a mess. So I ended up being in a studio apartment in East Orange on Park Avenue.
Oh, that's right by me, girl. I'm in Orange.
Girl, I'm from so I was all over Newark, but I ended up being in EL on Park Ave in a studio apartment, me, my 3 kids, and my mom. And I will never forget looking at my family, because the truth is, I'm the breadwinner. I'm the one who makes the money in my family. I take care of my family, and I don't mind that because it's in my DNA. But anyway, so I remember looking at my family and thinking to myself, I put my kids in this situation. You got to start taking responsibility at some point. And I'm like, because of my money habits, because I was chasing dudes and chasing relationships, I put myself in this situation. I put my children in this situation. I hate where I'm living. I hate my circumstance. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to just sit here and be 29? And I had to give my car back because I couldn't, I had to pay rent and I couldn't have a car note. So I was back to taking the bus. It was a fucking disaster, to be honest. I was depressed. It was so much, Raina, so much. So I said, wow, what you going to do? So I started to make decisions, and I gave up my car so I could save money. I started saving. I started hustling. I started, doing a lot of side gigs. I was hosting at Vibes in the City, downtown Newark at La Rouge. I just started really getting into my creative bag, and I started to make, some money from it. So working full time plus doing my creative side hustle. This is now like 2017. And then I came up with Bossman Coffee.
So let's go to that, right? Because you could have come up with anything, right? You're a creative. You wanted to be a star when you were a kid. You could have done like a media company. I know you had your podcast before, but why coffee? I know you have your Cuban roots, right?
Yeah,
that coffee is definitely, at least I think, right? It's a big part of Cuban culture. Yeah. What made you say, I'm going to really carve my own path in this coffee lane?
What's so interesting? Like throughout my years of just always having entrepreneurial spirit and doing all the things that I've done. So I've done freelance makeup. I've done so much. And I always notice through my, journey throughout New York and the city and cafes, I never saw like Black folk in coffee. It was always either very Latino, right? So like marketing for coffee is 2 things. It's either very Latin, so it's very café bustelo, or very Folgers. And I'm like, what I've noticed throughout my years is coffee. First of all, coffee is a very Black thing. The first coffee was in Ethiopia. So it's a very Black thing. And for some reason, not enough Black people are in the coffee world. It's a white male dominated industry. So I said, So I always was like, I want to have a cafe, But I knew that I just didn't have the capital for a cafe in Brooklyn. Still don't, because cafes in Brooklyn are like $15,000 in rent a month. So I remember in 2017, I was like, I'm gonna start my own coffee brand, but I just didn't know how. And finally, it came to me like, I'm gonna start my own coffee brand. I was like, imagine having your own coffee with your name on it. That's crazy. And when I came up with the idea, I felt it. I don't know, Raina, I can't really tell you why, but I felt it. And I knew
the magical moment, right? It's like, it was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And I knew if I created something, first of all, it's different, right? When we think about all the creatives in our area, in New York, Jersey, we all doing the same shit. And I already knew like, if I do something different like this that I don't see anyone else doing, and I have a passion for, this can really take me to where I want to go, which essentially is being a nationally known speaker and tell my story and all this shit. So when I created Boss Blend, I was like, it just felt right. But I was still working, so it wasn't my side hustle. And I was just building it. I would do so much. The first year Boss Blend, I did everything for free. I did pop-ups for free. I gave away free coffee to influencers. I mean, I did so much free shit. And that's what helped gain brand awareness. That's what helped gain brand equity. So now I'm at a spot where, Target reached out to me to have my coffee in stores. So it's like, how do those moments happen? You have to be doing a lot of self-development and have a lot of intuition and building your intuition to know when to make a move at the right time.
Listen, I'm going to get back to that of self-development and intuition, right? But for a lot of our dream drivers who are just starting out listening in, right? They may have these ideas. They may have these very unique, innovative ideas, but they don't know where to get started. For you, you weren't a coffee entrepreneur before, right? Like talk us through how you actually went about figuring out the process and how you were going to make Boss Blend come to life, right? You don't have to give us the details, but just talk to us about what your game plan was.
Oh, that's a good one. My game plan, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't really have a game plan because I'm very impulsive.
That's all right? But that's something. That's something.
I'm very impulsive. I'm an Aquarius through and through. So I'm very impulsive. So I remember when I said, all right, I'm about to launch. I remember launch day. I'm like, okay, I launched December 2018. I'm like, all right, I'm about to launch this thing. Raina, I didn't even have, all I had was an importer. I had someone where I was going to get my coffee from. Again, I wasn't a coffee connoisseur. I just loved coffee. I knew the culture of it, but everything was self-taught. I learned how to roast myself. I learned how to, learn coffee profiles by watching YouTube videos. Like everything is self-taught. But I remember when I first launched, I'm like, all right, I'm going to just do this. But before that, I had an audience. So I think that's important. I think that before you launch a business, do you have people to sell it to? Because it's like, why would people buy my coffee? They didn't know who I was. So at that time, I had an audience of like 1,000, 2,000 people who just knew me as an entrepreneur, a podcaster at the time who drank coffee every morning. And that's how kind of it started. After I launched, that's when I started to put the strategy because I didn't think nobody was going to buy it. The first day I launched Boss Blend, I made $1,000. I couldn't believe it.
Wow. But you know what? What if you had, I think that also is a great point that you shared because a lot of us never get started because we think we have to have it perfect, right? Or we think we have to have the plan. And that actually holds a lot of people back. Sometimes you just got to put the car in reverse, right? I'm not to put the dreams and drive terminology in here, but sometimes you just have to get into reverse and figure it out. Stop worrying about if your brakes working, if your engine's working, just get the car moving.
And I think that's a great point. I think a lot of us don't really understand mindset. And a lot of us don't really understand that once you have a belief in something, once you believe in something, it doesn't matter how it's going to happen. And I think we have to understand how our belief system works. So mind you, I launched in 2018 and I didn't have a strategy because I was a new entrepreneur. I never sold a product and strategy, what the hell is that? Now as an entrepreneur, that's all we talk about is strategy. But in the beginning, I just had a belief. I believed in my business idea enough to bring it to market. So I didn't know how it was going to work. And you know what? Another thing, Raina, I was okay if it didn't work because I'm like, if it doesn't work this way, then maybe I just have to then try a different way. But I just knew it. I believed in it. I believed in myself enough to know that it was going to work. And also I had to change the way my life was going. So it was like, if this don't work, girl, you're going to have to go do something strange to change because enough is enough already. So I think that having belief is what keeps a lot of us back when we don't believe in it.
Yep. So how did you get that? You said that your first order or your first week, you had $1,000. What was that? Let me just get that right.
Yeah. The first day I launched. So I I launched on December 1st, 2018. And I will never forget, I was in a car when the website opened. And Lord, the website was so ugly. It was so ugly. Now that I think back, it was so ugly. And I launched, and I would never forget when at the end of the day, because I had went to work that day. I went to work and I was like, okay, I launched it. I said, let me put it out there. Launched it. And by the end of the day, I saw bing, 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 bing. It was pinging, pinging. I only had one blend at the time. And it was pinging, 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 pinging. And by the time I came home, I'm like, yo, I made $998.
Wow.
And
how did you feel? Talk me through that feeling.
I was shook. I was like, wait a minute. I said, well, who the hell? Granted, a lot of people was, friends, family.
But listen, that doesn't matter, right? Sometimes you need that momentum. Sometimes it's about building momentum. Having that, the your proof of concept was like viable, right?
Yeah. It's all about momentum and speed. And I knew after that, I'm like, oh yeah, we about to go full throttle. So I just kept going. And of course, when you launch anything new, you just kind of learn as you go. I made a lot of mistakes in my business. I still make mistakes every single day, but I had the momentum, and I knew that once I get the word out there and people drink it, it's going to keep growing. And so much so that I was able to just, and also doing things for free, right? Doing pop-ups, doing conventions, I did CultureCon in 2019. That was a huge opportunity to get my coffee in front of over 4,000 people. So just doing things for free and just getting out, putting myself out there, literally. Even if I look stupid, even if I didn't say the right things or do the right things, I knew for sure that putting yourself out there was the key, for sure.
This episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by Charmin. Those who use Charmin really enjoy the go. So as you guys know, Charmin has a variety of products to satisfy your to-go needs. So what are we talking about? We're talking about our bathroom experience. That's the one thing that we all have in common. All of us dream drivers, right? The need to go. So why not enjoy the go with Charmin? For me, softness matters at home and in the bathroom, and Charmin has products that make your to-go experience that much better. So there's Charmin Ultra Soft, which has irresistible cushiony softness. There's Charmin Ultra Strong for superior strength and absorbency. Or you can try Charmin Flushable Wipes. I'm a new mother, so I love anything that's wipes. And get the freshest clean Charmin has. And don't forget Charmin's long-lasting Mega Rolls. Charmin aims to give you a better bathroom experience. And at Charmin, they believe that won't happen if you finish it all off with the wrong toilet paper. Which is why they are making a toilet paper that's just right for everybody. So dream drivers, try Charmin and enjoy a better bathroom experience. What's the best mistake that you made early on? Best mistake. And think about that, right? Because mistakes could be seen as failures, but was there a mistake that actually turned out to teach you something,
Yeah. The best mistake I made in the beginning of Boss Blend was CultureCon, actually. So in 2019, CultureCon had a big convention, and they had vendors for the first time. So when they invited me out to be part of CultureCon, I was like, all right, bet, this is huge. It's going to be crazy. They told me to at least come with 500 to 1,000 coffee bags. So I was a vendor. So I was going to just sell coffee. But then I had the most brilliant idea. I said, you know what? I'm going to sell coffee bags, but I'm also going to serve coffee. So I was already thinking of ways to diversify the income. So that's one thing about being in retail for so long. I knew how to make money. So anyway, long story short, I go to CultureCon. I bought everything from Amazon. I bought all the coffee brewers I needed, the machines I needed.
I'm nervous, Fly. What happened?
So I get to CultureCon. And it's mad vendors there. Of course, I'm the only coffee vendor because, it's new concept. Anyway, girl, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, there's lines wrapped around the conference for my coffee. Lines. I ran out of coffee. I ran out of milk. I ran out of sugar. And I have people in line. Yo, there was people waiting to drink coffee for hours. And the biggest mistake I made at that point was being underprepared. For some reason, I did not think about bringing more than enough. And that was scarcity mindset. That was lack mindset. Why did I think being in this huge conference like CultureCon with over 5, that was the year that Tracy Ellis was speaking.
Yeah, that was the year right before COVID hit. So that was like, that was the year they were on the come up too.
They were on the come up. It was such a huge moment for CultureCon. Shout out to the CCNYC. And I was just sitting there like, I can't believe this. I ran out, mind you, we in the middle of Brooklyn. I ran out. I only had my partner with me, it was just me and her. And I had to run out at least 4 times to get cups, to get milk, to a local Trader Joe's. Like to me, it was a disaster. But I learned a very valuable lesson in saying, you got to understand when you are trailblazing and when you're doing something that no one has seen, people are going to be interested. So the fact when the first 50 people had the coffee, and Raina, I was the only coffee person there.
Did they tell you that you were going to be the only one?
No.
Damn.
So for some reason, I'm like, it's a conference. It started early, like 9 a.m. Of course people want coffee. Duh. Of course. And I think they did have like a coffee sponsor, but they were there for like an hour. So after that hour, I was the only coffee provider there. So I thought that I was going to be serving 500 to 1,000 people. Raina, I served over 2,000 to 4,000 cups of coffee that day.
With your own? So what happened, like, because you ran out of your own product, how did you mitigate that?
So I didn't. So the thing is, I didn't run out of coffee itself because I brought pounds and pounds of coffee, but I ran out of like condiments, almond milk, sugar. I had to go get cups. I ran out of tissue. So I ran out of like condiments, and I only had one coffee brewer. So I was making 12 cups of coffee at a time, which was horrible because it takes about 8 to 12 minutes to brew it. It was a disaster. It was coffee everywhere. It was so hectic that the team at the event were bringing me industrial garbage cans to put next to me. The line was so intense that the other vendors were complaining about me. They were like, yeah, she's gonna have to move her line because I was blocking everybody's table. Or,
wow.
It was so crazy. And I gained a lot of exposure because of that. I still have customers to this day that found me and drank my coffee for the first time there. So it was a great blessing, great exposure. I built a lot of brand equity, but it was super stressful. And ever since then, girl, I don't go nowhere without, I have a whole tub. I went to Walmart and bought like a 36-ounce tub so I can always just pack extra stuff because you can't underestimate anything in business.
Yeah, I think the next time I saw you was at Renee Blewett's. What was that event that she had in Brooklyn?
You were there? Oh yeah, I did see you there.
Yeah. Remember? But you were busy there too, girl. You were busy there.
That was In Her Shoes.
Yes, their holiday bazaar or something like that. Girl, I think it was in the beginning of 2019. I think. Yes,
that was like December. That was in the beginning, and that was a great event. I sold out there as well. I was over prepared. I sold out everything that I brought, but it was busy, and I had people that met me at CultureCon that was also there, and because I was promoting it, people that followed me to go there. So it was just, pop-ups and events like that just really help with building your brand for real. So that's why COVID, it's been interesting.
I want to ask you about that, right? You were on this momentum. You were figuring out, like, all right, people, you validated the idea, right? People knew that you were about your coffee business. Yeah. What were the plans to take it to the next step? Or what was the next step for you?
That's honestly my next step came because of COVID. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I was okay. Like, I always wanted to be a full-time entrepreneur for sure, right? We all romanticize entrepreneurship, and COVID happened. So when COVID happened, mind you, before COVID, I had all these plans to do pop-up events for 2020. I was already getting invites to go to some pop-ups and do some conference and just do different things, conferences. And because of COVID, all that stopped. And as a new business, especially a product-based business, pop-ups and vending events is a great way to get in real life interactions and make money, right? But for me, I knew that in real life interactions was a great way for people to feel the energy and the vibe. Sometimes you don't break even, right? You paid $400 for a table. Sometimes you only make $200, but it's more about those interactions. But because of COVID, I had to pivot hard, and I didn't expect it because my plan was keep doing events, keep doing pop-ups, keep selling online, and that's going to be that.
Like, no one expected a global health pandemic, right? Nobody.
No, listen, before COVID, Raina, I was not thinking about being in retail stores. I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't. I was not thinking about being in retail stores. Before COVID, I knew I wanted a cafe and I knew I wanted a coffee truck. That's really as far as it went. But because it was my side hustle and because I was still working 50 hours a week at a job, I was paying more attention to the job that was paying me a salary, to be honest. And Boss Blend was just something I was doing 15 to 20 hours a week. And when COVID happened and my sales started blowing out the water and all of this brand attention started to come and all these articles and write-ups and all types of shit, I'm like, oh, this. Okay, girl, you got to figure it out. You got to figure it out real quick. Either you're going to ride the wave or you're not. And that's when I had to make serious decisions right in the middle, like March, April.
Why do you think you got that spike of sales and all that? Like, what do you think changed about consumers' buying habits?
Because of my market and because I'm in Jersey and New York, a lot of people are on the go. People are not brewing as much coffee at home, right? So I have especially my audience, they're entrepreneurs, they're 9-to-5ers, so they're always on the go. And once the pandemic hit, once people started staying home more, people started making more coffee at home. And once, Black Lives Matter movement, was at its peak and the pandemic, I started to get, I had influencers. I'm going to be honest with you. I had a couple influencers talk about Boss Blend, talk about how Boss Blend is making their working from home better. And the truth is, when you have the right influencer grab your product and talk about your product, the power of the internet is so real. So I had the Claire Somers talk about Boss Blend. That's huge.
Oh,
Claire,
wow. In her community, there are certain influencers that they're actually influencers. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I had the Claire Somers talk about Boss Blend. I had Kayla Walker talk about Boss Blend. I had Maddie James. I had these huge influencers talk about my brand in such a way for free, right? Because it's like, I didn't pay anybody. I didn't reach out to anybody. They simply bought the product and fell in love with the business, the brand, and the story. And because they're real influencers and they have real trust with their audience, it grew my business so crazy that I'm like, oh, snap. And then, girl, and then also the pattern. People were brewing coffee at home. So then that's when I started to pivot and make different products. So I started making the single serve, which is something that you just need hot water. You don't need to, it already comes prepackaged for you. You pull it out, you put it on your coffee cup, you add hot water. So now I'm catering to the busy entrepreneur, the busy 9-to-5er, the mom, right? So that was a huge hit. Then I started just making cold brew. So I just started doing all these different things to go with either working from home or working at a co-working space, or, even if it's summertime and it's a pandemic, but you can still have a nice cold brew. So it was just all these different things. Like, I started to really pay attention to my customer, pay attention to my audience, and pay attention to what's happening and how people are buying. And people want convenience. People want to make their working from home experience better. So I just started to give people what they wanted, and that really scaled my business.
You were doing all this, you said, while working a full-time job, right? When was the moment for you that you realized, I got to choose one?
Oh, It was May. It was, mind you, I worked at a retailer, a big box retailer, where I was considered essential. So I was working in the middle. Like, I saw people fighting over toilet tissue and people fighting with each other. It was crazy. And I remember going to work one day and thinking to myself, like, I don't know, I just felt God telling me, like, this is the time. And I was just like, ain't no way I'm about to leave my salary in the middle of a pandemic when people losing their jobs. That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense to me. You know, I'm like, nah, there's a way that I can do this. There's a way that I can really grow Boss Blend and keep up with the scale and keep up with the sales and keep up with the shipping. I'm gonna just use my mom. I just use my son. But it was like, no, you need to show up online. Now you need to really rev up the content, all types of shit. And I would never forget going to work, and I took 2 weeks off because I'm like, I feel like I've been exposed too much to COVID. So I need to take 2 weeks off and just like quarantine. And I remember quarantining for 2 weeks and thinking to and then, you know, my kids, there were no more schools. So I'm like, who's going to take care of my children? Like, I can't expect my mom to be with these kids day in, day out. I'm working 50 hours a week. They got to do virtual. My mom is not computer savvy. Girl, so much. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, my kids are home, my business is growing, and I'm away from home 50 hours a week, 10-hour days, mandatory.
Wow.
I'm like, I got to quit. So throughout those 2-week quarantine with my family, I was able to work on Boss Blend, and I felt the fulfillment. I felt the joy of being able to help my kids with virtual school, being home, running my business from home. It was just such a moment where it was like, God was like, I don't care what the world looks like. I don't care what's going on out there. It's time for you to go because this is it right now. And I'm like, okay. I went back to work, girl. I will never forget putting in my 2-week notice. I was leaving a nice salary, mind you, for someone who doesn't have a college degree, for someone who has a GED, to be making that type of money, to be able to pay my mortgage and take care of my 3 kids on my own. It was good. You know, who does that? And I will never forget putting in my 2-week notice. Raina, I was shaking. I was sweating. My stomach was turning. But I felt like this was the right thing to do, even though it didn't make sense. Girl, and lo and behold, I worked my last week, 2 weeks, and everything from there, to be honest, that was my last day of work, was May 22nd, 2020. I will never forget it. May 22, 2020. And ever since then, my business has grown and I've never stopped working since then. And it's a blessing. And I'm grateful because coffee has become essential to people. Coffee is something that people will not give up. They won't. Yeah, girl, here we are.
You know, I want to ask you this because I think sometimes there are people who do this. Did anyone ever try to talk you off the ledge? Did anyone say, hey, Fly, like, what are you doing, girl? What? Nah, just keep doing it a little bit more. And if they did, how did you respond to them?
Before really making the decision to leave my job, you know, I left several jobs in attempt to be a full-time entrepreneur, but it wasn't time. And I remember, you know, people telling me like, girl, you can't leave your job. You got 3 kids. What you talking about? Are you crazy? Girl, bye. No, you better not leave that secure job. You know, you better not leave. And honestly, nothing is secure. And one of the biggest things people tell me, like, you can't lose your benefits. Girl, don't lose your benefits. How you gonna take them kids to the doctors? It was always tied around my children, and which I understand. But I will never forget calling Sarah.
Sarah Vega, right?
I will never forget calling Sarah.
Episode 86 guest, y'all, just so we know.
I will never forget calling Sarah Vega right before I left May 22nd. And I say, yo, I really feel like I gotta leave. Like, I feel like Boss Blend is about to go crazy. I feel it. I don't know why, but I have to go. And she told me straight up. She was like, you will know when is the right time because you'll feel it in your gut. And you will hear God tell you what you need to do, period. Don't, it doesn't matter what nobody else say. It may not make sense to anybody, but you know what is best for you and your kids. And it's the truth. And I will never forget. I was like, yo, I'm doing it. I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice today. She was like, just know that it's hard and it's no going back. Because if you're going to do this, you got to do it with your whole chest, period. And I'm like, bet. And yeah, and even now, to this day, my father calls me still. My father knows that my business is growing. My father, he knows my coffee is great. He knows all the opportunities that come my way. And still, he'd be like, yeah, I need you to go get a job. Go get a job. Still, to this day, my father, my grandfather, my grandma, yeah, we understand your business is growing, but you still need a job. So I still hear it. I still get it. But the only voice that matters is my own. And as long as my mother's my number one supporter. And every time I'll be like, Mom, I'm about to get a job. She's like, no, you're not. Yeah, it's tough because when you're making decisions for yourself, there's always going to be people to tell you to do the opposite because they're projecting their fears onto you. And it's just my favorite quote from Jay-Z in a video. He says, my uncle told me I would never sell 1 million records. And he was like, I sold 1 million records 1 million times. And it's true because a lot of times when people can't see what you see, it's so they can't even imagine it. They can't imagine a single mom from Newark who had a baby at 17, dropped out of school, all this bullshit is out here thriving, selling coffee. What? That don't make no sense. It just don't make sense. It's always interesting to see my family reaction. And you know what? I'm not even mad at them anymore, Raina. When my father called me, when my grandma called me, when my granddad called me, and be like, I just be like, okay, yup, all right, yup, because I understand that they're just worried about me,
But it goes back to saying of that you have to have that strong belief in the vision, right? Yeah. How did you? Because it takes a very, very it takes someone who has gone through, who knows what the other side looks like, right? Like you're like, I already know what it was like to not put in any effort, to have that to have that dead dream. So it's like for you, there was only one option, which was to succeed or to figure out how you were going to succeed, right? But how would you, what counsel would you give to that person who is having a hard time in developing that belief in their vision, right? They have it, the vision, they have the idea, but they don't yet believe it.
I want to say the number one thing to anyone who has a vision for their life and wants to start something, but is afraid to take action. The number one thing, stop asking people for advice. You have to. You cannot ask. I'm sorry. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you cannot ask your friend who's a 9-to-5er about entrepreneurship. If you want to be a millionaire, you can't talk to your mom who ain't never make over $20,000. If you want to be a better mother, you can't talk to your friend who don't have any kids. If you want to be a better wife, you can't talk to your homegirl who ain't never hold a man more than 6 months. It's certain things that you have to understand about mindset and belief. And the truth is, we as humans fight with our own belief system. When you then go outside of yourself to ask someone else for advice, they give you their belief system. So now you're battling with your own belief and theirs. So I think that was my biggest downfall, was asking the wrong person for advice. So if you cannot ask a millionaire on how to be a millionaire, then you're going to have to read some books and you're going to have to listen to some podcasts to figure it out and talk to people who have or listen to people who have experienced it. If you want to take the jump and leave your job, you cannot talk to someone who is scared to call out from work. You know what I mean? So certain things that you have to understand to limit your chances of not jumping. So stop asking the wrong person for advice and read about that thing that you want. Because Myleik Teele, I'll never forget, she said, Myleik Teele from Curlbox, she said, anything you want to learn, any questions you have, you find the answer in books. And it's so true. So stop asking folks about what you should do with your life and either read about it or watch a YouTube video, because you just going to be stuck. You're going to be stuck because your homegirl going to tell you don't do it because she ain't never done it. Self-belief is also about imagination. And imagination is all about your image and what you see. And everybody don't have that for your life. So pray to God, ask God to show you, meditation really transformed my life in the real way, and read for sure. Stop asking people man will always lead you in the wrong direction.
And they'll be leading you from their own fears as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Leading you from their own fears. Yep.
May 22nd, 2020, right? You left your job and blessings have come. What have been some of the blessings that have come your way since that you are now responding to and is now taking Boss Blend to the next level?
I've had many blessings, small, super small, some may say insignificant. But I think what has taken Boss Blend to the next level has been my focus. It really hasn't come from the outside. It has come from every day I gain more belief, and I use all the skills that I've learned working for other people. And I applied it to my business, so just really like applying more focus, showing up for my community in a real way, showing people the behind the scenes, showing people what's going on, and just bringing my community along with me has really scaled my business. Because the truth is, Raina, as a founder and an entrepreneur, you can only do so much by yourself. The community is what grows your business.
Exactly.
It's the customers. I'm telling you, people drink my coffee and they share it. Or I have a lot of people in my community that don't even drink coffee. That's the gagger of it all. I have people that don't drink coffee, but they rock with me because I share my story, because they can relate, because I'm a Black woman, because I'm Afro-Latina, because I'm a mom. So many different angles. So that has been a blessing because I'm aware. If I was still stuck at a job on a computer and doing something that I wasn't passionate about, nobody would know about Fly. Nobody would know about Boss Blend. Nobody would know about, a Black woman from the hood who's trying to change her life. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy. Now, externally, we've had some great write-ups. We was featured in Travenor. We was featured in Sprunge, sprunge.com, which is the coffee website, reached out by big box stores, so it's been a wild, it's been a wild ride. It's been crazy, but I be wanting to quit. I was just
you can't quit now, girl. You had ages 17 to 29 for those quitting years, right? You passed that now, girl. It's no quitting.
Because it's hard. It's not easy.
Now that I see these interviews, right? Kind of like we're going along a roller coaster. We're going up, up, up. We're at the point. We're at the top of the roller coaster, right? Yeah. Now we're going down. What have been some of the challenges that you've been navigating? Although you've had these blessings, although you've made this great shift to doing this full time, things are still going to be tough, right? We can't believe that dream driving is always going to be positive. It's always going to be easy. Talk us through some of these challenges that you're navigating and how you're doing them.
Can I be real with you? I think I have some challenges. I go through a lot of imposter syndrome. I go through a lot of imposter syndrome, and I constantly have to remind myself that shit is not real. It's shit you're telling yourself. So I go through a lot of that. Capital money is always an issue, and it's not so much about making the money. It's about money to grow, right? So it's like, if right now I'm needing $100,000 to start a coffee truck, where am I getting $100,000 from? So it's like really being resourceful and applying and finding grants and so it's just, that is the part of it that's super stressful. I have a very big workload, orders and maintaining my social status. Also, the thing about business is right now we're in an era where you got to show up online. If you don't create content, you're not in the conversation, Yep. So you have to create a podcast. You have to create YouTube. You have to be on Reels. And it's so much. And it's stressful. And, but the biggest challenge has been keeping my mindset strong, because it's very, it's hard work, keeping my mindset strong, finding capital to keep running the business. Cause as your business grows, the more money you need. And that's a fact. The more you grow, the more money you need. And I've debated going back to work, and simply to help the business grow, because if you don't have money, the business not growing.
I can feel you in that. Cause I've been doing Dreams and Drive, full time. I'm saying that in quotes because to be honest, I feel like the only reason why anyone listening in, I'm going to be honest, I worked my butt off from 2013 to 2018. That's when I quit my job, but I just was so cheap. I saved a whole bunch of money. Does that make sense? So I feel like I really only have been able to survive because I was just so money conscious and saving a lot, but maybe it was for a reason. I didn't know why I was saving so much money, right?
Yeah.
But now it all makes sense. Now I have a kid and I'm at this crossroads now where am I giving up on the dream if I have to go back to work? No. Maybe not, right? But because you're doing it with a purpose, right? And you had your season when you were able to focus, like you said, on Boss Blend, but maybe you do have to go get a part-time, or maybe you do have to go back and hustle for another year just so you get more capital. Like that's the thing that I'm going through in my own life is realizing that even if you have to, what you may think is backpedal, right?
Yeah.
Don't look at it like that. You have to look at it strategically and think of this is just the next step to get to the next place.
Yeah. And
I've been hard on myself because I'm like, I have a podcast about dreams and drive. And I'm over here applying to jobs. I got a kid now. And that has been my 2020, right? For me, 2020 was finding out I was pregnant and then like, wait, what? And trying to figure out how was my life going to change. And now it's not all about me anymore. And that's the thing that I'm struggling with is what really counts as giving up on the dream? And I don't think having to go back to work means that. Sometimes it's just a means to an end to help you get to the next step.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, right now, this is a great conversation to have. I don't think we talk about it enough. I don't think, right now entrepreneurship is romanticized. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to have the laptop lifestyle. But the truth is, this is the hardest I've ever worked in my life. And I've worked for many. I started working when I was 15 and I've worked several jobs and I've worked, I've been tenured at jobs. So I've worked a lot, but this is the hardest I've ever worked because the truth is when you're an entrepreneur, you are creating systems and processes for your own business that then you have to teach your employees, right? So I have an assistant and then I have also a content creator on my team. And I have to show them how my business is ran and also be open to their ideas to help elevate the brand. When you're working for someone else, you're literally given a blueprint and you are being paid to implement it. So I think that what people need to realize that entrepreneurship is super hard. And the truth is you're always going to go broke, right? Entrepreneurship is not, if you're in it to be a millionaire right away, you're in the wrong gig. I think, so that's a few things that we have to talk about entrepreneurship, but also when you're in a space in your business where you need money to scale, where you need to kind of sit back and think about and look at your business from an outside view and say, okay, I know for the next level in my business, I need money. Mm-hmm. So that means that you have to go part-time. You're not letting go of the dream. Letting go of the dream is saying it's just stopping. But if you're like, listen, I'm going back to work so I can save $20,000, but you're still, guess what? When you get off of work, you're still recording podcasts. You're still, showing up online. It may not be full-time anymore. It might be now instead of 40 hours, 20 hours. It may be instead of 5 hours a day, 2 hours a day. But you're still putting in that footwork. And I think we need to really understand that it's a money game and you have to have money to scale, unless you got an investor or whatever the case may be. But no, I think that it's okay to go back to work. And even if you have a popping business, right? Because Boss Blend is popular, right? So if I was to go back to work, people would probably be like, oh, nah, she ain't that. Nah. You know what I'm saying? Because Boss Blend is popular. But that doesn't mean that I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I'm sitting on racks on racks on racks. What that means is because it's popular, I got to bring in more bread so I can sustain my popularity. So that's why a lot of businesses go up and crash because they try to keep up with the Joneses. And I'm not about that because I'm thinking about longevity. Yes, popping right now. That's cute. But I want this business to be handed to my 15-year-old so he can now have a business where he's like, all right, my mom created this. It's 30 years. We've been in business for 30, 40 years. And this is something for him and his family, So we got to think long term. So if you got to go back to work, go back to work. If you gotta, because I'm girl. Listen, I'm about to do Lyft, Uber.
But I like that you brought up your son and thinking about we as Black women, right, and creating legacy. And now that I'm a mother, I'm so happy I could say this. Now that I'm a mother, right, and I can say it and I understand it, because like you were saying, like, you can't get advice from people if they haven't walked in your shoes, right? So now I truly understand when people say like the balancing motherhood is tough, right? How do you see motherhood as part of your journey? How has it influenced your journey? How does it guide your journey?
Yeah, it guides me. Let me tell you, Raina, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people don't even know, like, I don't lead with motherhood, for a very long time. People are surprised when they find out I have 3 kids. Because I don't really parade my children online, because they didn't sign up for this lifestyle.
Yeah.
I like to keep the things that are most precious to me private. So I show them that, but not as much as other mompreneurs and influencers.
Yeah.
They guide me in a real way. Because let me tell you something. If I didn't have these kids, Raina, I would be okay living in a studio apartment in a little box in Brooklyn, chilling. Girl, I'll be out, having my beers. I truly believe that my children are the one, especially my oldest son. He's been with me the longest. He's seen the struggle. We lived in messed up apartments, girl. I've been evicted with my kids, and all my stuff outside, locked out because of the sheriff, and I can't. I just think it's criminal. I think it's criminal to have children and not set them up for success. To me, how can I have all these kids and then send them out to the world with nothing? Not a savings, not a trust fund, not an education, manners, values, nothing, and that's the thing that drives me. Is like, yo, I want my children to say, my mom worked her ass off. She created this business for us. I want my kids to say, no, I don't have to be 19 and move out my house and work, because I have a business. We have a house. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay to be 19, 20, 21 and still live at home. It's okay. It's normal, In our community, we kick our children out at 18. Like, what?
Yeah, or we make them want to take care of us when it shouldn't be that way.
You know what I mean? You 18 and you telling your kids you got to go get a job? No, my son is 15 and he can work next year. My son is able to work next year with working papers. We've been talking about it. He's like, Mom, I think I want a job. And I'm like, no, you're not going out there and working. Like, you want to work for me. You want to work, come work at Boss Blend. You can do shipping. You can count the money. You can do whatever. We can go to the bank. You can do deposits. You're not about to go out there and work and get paid pennies and give all your talents and your time away. You're not doing it. I created this so you can work for the family business and grow it. Or, like, all I really want you to do is just focus on school. I tell them all the time, just focus on school. My son wants to be a cartoonist. He wants to be, he loves anime. He's a great artist. He's a great storyteller. So I tell him all the time, like, yo, keep writing. Focus on your writing, focus on school, and that's it. And I think when we take off these financial responsibilities off our children at such a young age, like, it's just crazy to me, because, our white people, listen, Rebecca, she be at home until she get married.
Yeah. And she gets the house, or she gets something. And that's the whole generational wealth, right? Like, in order for our kids to be better than us, or to have a better, to have a better life, we have to give them something to start out with. Mm-hmm. That is the key.
That is the key. There's no way. I'm telling you, there's just no way to send out an 18 to 20. I think from 18 to 25, those are pivotal moments in our life. From 18 to 25. It's like you're figuring out who you are. You might be in school. You might have graduated. You might have not, decided to go to school. You might decide to be an entrepreneur. And the truth is, right now, Raina, we're in an era where entrepreneurs are getting younger and younger and younger and younger.
Generation Z, they're the next big thing.
Then don't Generation Z, they don't take nobody's crap. They're creating their own businesses. They're being influencers. They're out here TikToking away until they get a check. Okay. And they understand a social currency. They understand influence. They understand trends. So it's different. It's different now. And yeah, so back to the question, like, yeah, my kids drive me because I know that the world, what I'm creating, they'll be able to use it for their world. And that's all that matters, really.
So, we're winding down, right? Where a car is coming to a stop now, Fly, right? We're about to get out the car, right?
Yeah.
What's next? Where do you see Boss Plan go? Like, what does your dashboard show you? What are you seeing out that back window, front window, whatever? Like, what's the vision now?
Oh man, that's a great question. I do see us, being sold in big box retailers. I do see that. I do see us having, coffee trucks, at least 3, one in Atlanta, Jersey, and New York. And I do see, cafes. I want, why can't I be the Starbucks? Why can't I be a cafe? Why can't I be in every, at least 4 Boss Blend cafes in Soho? Hello? Why not? Why can't I have, that? And I just want to create a space for Black people in coffee to really show people, like, you can do whatever you want. You can create the life that you want. You can create the business that you want, even if you're the only one in that field, even one is no one really that looks like you. But I do see Boss Blend being a household name for real. And yeah, and that's really it for now. I'm always stuck at that question when I get asked that, 'cause I'm like, yo, I don't even know.
There is power in not knowing, right? Because sometimes even when you plan too much, you might limit yourself. Sometimes things just come up that you have to respond to. And that's what happens. It's funny. I think of, I get so inspired whenever I see her online. I interview her on the show, I want to say 2019. Why is her name escaping me now? Oh my gosh. Pinky Cole, Slutty Vegan. Do you follow her story?
Oh my gosh. She's killing the game.
And it's funny because she used to be a producer on Maury, right? And she started out in production. She was working for Ayanla, Fix My Life, right? And then she kind of stumbled upon Slutty Vegan and making these homemade sauces, homemade burgers. And it just, think about, like, if you follow her story, now she has the Slutty Vegan franchise, right? Oh. And 2 years ago, she was in a commercial kitchen in Atlanta just selling things out the kitchen. And now there's a whole franchise. So you cannot even see sometimes what's behind the curtain for you, right? Yeah. But you have to stay on stage. Yeah. That's what's really important. You do not know. We do not know the blessings that are for us. And I just really thank you for sharing your story, because I know there are a lot of people listening in right now who may feel like giving up, right? Yeah. They may feel like maybe this isn't for me. COVID may not have been so kind to some people. So there are people who are using your story as an inspiration, as hope, Fly. And I just really want to say thank you for sharing it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate, Dreams and Drive. It's a huge deal.
Thank you, girl. I'm trying to get back into it. Like, the baby's asleep on my shoulder. I dare not put him down so that he starts screaming.
I know. It's hard, but you know what? The key to it all, and I want to say, shout out to you, because I know how it is being a new mom. And, I don't know if you have friends who have kids.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not easy. There's no manual. There's no manual on how to be a mom and how to be a mom in business. And I think, just showing up, and scheduling the podcast and doing things little by little. I'm telling you, those baby steps are so magical. And I think a lot of times we don't realize how magical those baby steps are. So just by you sitting down, doing the podcast with him on your shoulder, you are still moving. And I think you have to give yourself grace. You just had a whole baby and you're still going. And even if it's not at the speed that you want to go, and if it's not the speed that you're accustomed to, you're still going. And shout out to you, because a lot of women have children and they stop completely. Give yourself grace. Shout out to you. You just had a whole baby, girl. So that's a blessing right there.
It's funny. His name is Axel, right? And the axle is the part of the wheel that keeps it going, right? So it's like, all right, brother man, all right, you keep your mommy going.
Stay on brand. You stay on brand, okay?
Okay, last question, Fly, right? If you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success, right? So tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
You need to have, first and foremost, you need to believe in yourself. I think this is so cliche, right? But it's true. We can do amazing things with belief. So believe in yourself. You need to be resourceful. There's always a way to do something. There's a lot of people doing way more with way less. Be resourceful. So believe in yourself, be resourceful, and trust God. Trust God, the universe, whatever higher power you believe in, trust, and have faith. So yeah, those are my tools in my toolkit.
Thank you again for this. I didn't go into this with an agenda. I realize that sometimes the best conversations are ones that are organic, right? And you shared so much, especially on the whole idea of self-development, intuition, and just being, succumbing to the journey, right? Not trying to fight the journey, but just letting the journey be you. That's something that I'm trying to do now as I'm navigating this new part of my life, motherhood, girl, because it is tough, especially with COVID and can't get no help. Oh, girl, it is so tough, but
it really is tough. But you know what? I think, what's interesting with the pandemic and COVID and everything that's going on, it's right now. Well, I don't know about right now. I think we're still on high alert. At the beginning of COVID, the whole world was on this high frequency, and everybody was freaking out. And imagine the whole entire world operating on the same frequency. That is super powerful. And I think some of us, dialed in that energy with anxiety, fear. A lot of people responded differently. A lot of people were afraid. And then we have people who really took that energy and got the ball rolling. They started developing businesses. They started getting podcasts out, products. So everyone responded differently to that high frequency that we were all feeling at the same time. So I think what's interesting about it is, how are you going to transfer that energy? Because energy is transferable. So I think that just staying focused on what it is that you want to do, and understanding that now you have these different elements that are happening in the world, and how are you going to respond to it, and in a real way that feels good to you. I think a lot of times we try to emulate what other people are doing, but we have to do things that feel good to us through and through. So it's like, I know you have a baby. It's like, okay, I have a newborn baby. I really can't get help because of COVID. So how can I make this feel good to me? Rather, it's putting him on a system, putting you on a system. You can say, you know what? If I know the baby wakes up at 8, I'm going to wake up at 5.
Yeah.
Because if I wake up at 5, I have from 5 to 7 to just be me and do what I love, right? Rather that's drink your coffee, drink your tea, listen to music, meditate. So then, by the time he's awake, you already filled your cup up. And then understand, like, okay, if he naps at 1, all right, maybe I'm going to nap with him, or just figure out your rhythm and do things that feel good to you through and through, regardless of what anybody else thinks. Because it's things that I do in my life that people just don't agree with. There's ways that I move, and there's ways that I show up that people don't agree with, but I don't care, because you're not raising these kids with me, you know? So I think, just showing up the best way that feels good to you through and through, child, because let me tell you, it's not easy. Being an entrepreneur is hard, but being a mom and an entrepreneur, girl, listen.
But look, what's the quote? Diamonds are made under pressure, right? Like,
yeah.
The one thing that I'm realizing, I'm like, the world is basically run by mothers, right? But yet the world makes it so hard for mothers to run. Does that make any sense? Like, what the hell? There's so many things that I'm realizing now, but I have this new perspective, and I have a new way to connect with people that I haven't been able to truly connect with before. So I'm just really open to what's going to come for me in 2021. And I'm getting back on the highway. I'm driving I'm all the way on the right? I'm driving in the slow lane right now, but I might be, moving over to the left a little bit. So
slow and steady. And that's another thing. Somebody here on the live said, you got to trust your pace. And it's so true. You got to trust it. You got to go, and the thing is, there's no rush, because when you rush, that's when you become overwhelmed. And it's two different, rushing and urgency are two different things. And that's a whole nother conversation. But when you're moving in urgency, you're getting things done, but you don't feel overwhelmed because you're doing your pace. But when you start to rush and run and that's when you start feeling overwhelmed and shit is falling apart. And so take your time, and I'm telling you, you're gonna get right back. You're gonna get right back where you belong, girl.
All right. So that's a wrap for episode 260 with Kalisha. I hope that you enjoyed her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you guys enjoyed that episode, please make sure you're sharing it with your communities. Screenshot it, tag us. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and use that hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing as well. And don't forget, if you want to experience Boss Blend Coffee for yourself, we are actually doing a giveaway. I want to gift one of you dream drivers with some Boss Blend Coffee. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win to enter. That's dreamsanddrive.com/win to enter this week's giveaway. If you want to be part of our weekly newsletter, The Keys, you can sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's the best way to stay informed of all things Dreams and Drive. You guys get all the exclusive news there first. So make sure you're part of our email community, right? That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. If you guys want to cop Dreams and Drive merchandise, we still have t-shirts and crew neck sweatshirts available. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop. That's dreamsanddrive.com/shop. As always, guys, I'm super appreciative of all the love that you give the show each week. We are coming back stronger than ever. I really am excited for the lineup of interviews we have coming in these next few weeks. So make sure that you continue to tune in and make sure that you continue to put your own dreams in drive. All right. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 261. Bye, guys.